Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Shannon Powell on the podcast coming to us all the way from California. Don't even want to ask her what the weather's like over there because, I know it's insanely better than it is here in Minnesota, but she's a bodybuilder coming on, and she's coming on to share her story. And, we'll just talk health and fitness. And obviously we're in the middle of the pandemic, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But most importantly, she is our current guest. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So first of all, I got to ask, what's the weather like in California today?
Oh, it is. It's warming up. It's beautiful. It's in the 80s, maybe high 80s, maybe into the 90s later this week. So we're getting into warm weather. It's nice.
Well, I can at least feel a little bit better because being born and raised in Minnesota, once it reaches 80 degrees, that's too hot for me. So, if it's in, the low 70s, low mid 70s, that is just perfect for me. So, at least I can feel a little bit better about that. Like I was telling her before we started recording, it's in the upper 50s here, which is, decent for this time of year. But before I depress everyone with, my Minnesota weather woes, which that's a podcast in and of itself, why don't you give us your backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now?
Well, I grew up as an athlete, always, playing sports. Track and field was my background. I was an endurance athlete. Went to college and on a track scholarship. So I was always doing something. Continued running competitively in my 20s, even my 30s. Yeah, I'm a little older than most bodybuilders. And then I got into my 40s, had a couple kids and the whole 9 yards, still working, busy, busy, busy. Just kind of in a funk. Just kind of started surfing through the internet and saw these girls on stage flexing, and I was like, man, I want to do that. So I was I think 44 at the time. So this is like more than a decade ago. So I just kind of learned everything I could, reading, and I was always training on my own out of a garage, no matter where it was, and trained myself for my first fitness show. I just wanted to compete on stage and have muscles. So I did that. That was back in 2013. I've learned so much since then, just educating myself and learning more about the sport. It's been amazing how much I've been able to do in the last 8 years, almost 9 years,
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love asking that because, so many people, they get started at so many different ages. We've had people on here that got started, right when they were still in high school. And then we've had people, that have gotten started, in their 50s and 60s even. So it's just that wide variety that I really find fascinating. But one thing that I love to ask everyone that's, into health and fitness on the podcast is, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. What was that experience like for you? Because I know you had that background in running, but when you really started to get in shape and, really started to take things seriously, I should say, in the gym, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what'd you train for that body part? That, it looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
Yeah, well, the big change that I had to learn early on when I came from being a competitive runner my entire life and then wanting to do a bodybuilding show, was the diet. Was like, you have to eat right. You can't just eat, I was always used to eating a lot of spaghetti, a lot of carbs. I pretty much ate what I wanted. So changing that diet around and being consistent with it, you're going to see results along with, doing the cardio, and building muscle takes so much time. I've learned every year. I keep learning and learning. And so the biggest thing is you can train and work out as hard as you want, but if your diet is not good, you're not going to have the physique that you want. And then again, you got to think about everybody. Genetics are different. What works for one person may not work for another. So there's so many different things that you learn as you do this sport, and so the biggest thing for me was the diet change, the lifestyle change. So, but I've been at it, and every year I keep learning more and more, and I switch things up, and it's been interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, and you brought me in perfectly to the next question that I love to ask, because I love to talk about genetics, because I always say in this day and age, with everyone being on social media, everyone always likes to compare themselves to others and say, oh, I want her biceps or I want his abs or their back. I mean, people just don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself. And, you don't know how that person got to that look. I mean, they might just have better genetics, but whenever someone first gets started in the gym, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just lags behind, that they have to train into oblivion to get to catch up. I mean, for me, my back, just because I worked in warehouses all throughout my life in college and lifting and loading boxes, so you got a really nice back, you quit. But then I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just absolutely shot, where I mean, I have to train it into overdrive. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
Um, I always had strong legs, and my arms were always really good. I think I think for me the body part that I lagged was my back. Was my back. I mean, I got feedback from, and I didn't know how. I was training myself for the first few years when I was competing, and I was just learning through trial and error. And so the judges' feedback were, you need a back. My back was straight, so I remember I started doing pull ups. I mean, tons of. I couldn't even do a pull up. I think like 8 years ago, and now I can go to the gym, and that's one of my favorite exercises. I can't preach enough about pull ups. I mean, so, but yeah, it was my back, and I've actually developed my back, and but it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. I mean, it takes a lot of time. In anyone in this sport, it's like it takes so much time, and you can't be frustrated, because if you're frustrated and you don't have the patience, then you know you're not going to go as long.
That's why I always say that people in my generation, bodybuilding might not be for them, because everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday, where this is the one sport where you get into it. I mean, you are going to realize the hard way, it takes time and it takes dedication and it takes a heck of a lot of sacrifice, which a lot of people don't understand. I think when they first think about, bodybuilding and just the lifestyle that it has to entail. But also, I mean, people don't understand. And it's a myth that I, love to bust every single time I have a podcast, because it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but it's still, to this day, I mean, so many people don't understand that if you were to walk into the gym and, curl 1 pound, or curl one weight, I should say, you're not going to gain 50 pounds of muscle. And it's a thing that especially applies to women, where there still is that fear. Did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. So how do you like to respond to that?
Oh yeah. Well, I remember back in the day, I was I was like, you don't want, the myth is you don't want, women can build muscle, but it takes a lot of time to build that mass. You have to train hard. You have to eat right. It doesn't come overnight. And I was very naive in the beginning, and I'm like, I'm just going to do a lot of cardio and just do a few dumbbells. And that's what I did. I trained myself, and I went to my first couple shows, and I was the smallest one on stage, and I was like, I did too much cardio. I did too much cardio. And so I had to learn, you have to eat, you have to do less cardio, and you got to eat a lot, and it takes a lot of time. You got to train different body parts. But there are myths, and I still get people that come up. I get women and even men today, and they'll come up to me in the gym, and they'll ask me, well, how long did it take to get arms like you or a back like you? And I mean, I still get like, wow, and so I take my time and I talk to them. They go, well, I don't want to get quite like you, but I take it as a compliment. I don't want to be that big, but I want to know, like, what can I do? So, everyone wants the answers. And the bottom line is, everything takes time. You just got to get out there and you got to do it. But yes, you got to it takes a lot of time to build a lot of muscle. And it's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah, and again, if that does happen to you overnight, give me a call, because I want to talk to you then, because I mean, you have found the secret that I've been looking for my whole life. But I mean, on top of that, I always say the one thing that I think affects women so much more positively than men when it comes to working out is just the confidence boost that it gives you. I mean, we have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who have been able to make life-changing decisions, or it's maybe helped them be more assertive. It's just helped them better their overall lives. How have you taken working out and, getting into bodybuilding and use that to help better your everyday life? Because I always say that that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and impact your life.
So, believe it or not, I work out because it's like my drug. It's like my therapy. It's just like, I feel I can have a bad day. I mean, we all have daily stresses with our job, with families, with issues, no matter what it is. And I can tell you that the training in the gym, the bodybuilding training, I've always worked out my whole entire life, has helped me get over a lot of traumatic events in my life. A lot of major things that has happened. If I didn't have that outlet, um, I don't think I'd have the confidence. I changed careers. I was in one job for 22 years, and I made a big change, and I didn't want to make the change. I was scared, but it's because of the confidence that I had in the gym that it's helped me. I lost a daughter back in 2005, and that was very, very traumatic for me. Um, and I remember, I was really depressed a lot. I had a lot of anxiety, and it's such a mental thing that you need in your life. And no matter what it is, it's helped me, and it's been my therapy. So whether I still compete or whatever I do, I'm always going to have that outlet in the gym, doing some type of physical activity, because it's something that you can't get no play. You can't take it out of a pill. It's just something, it's those endorphins that help your mental clarity, your decision making. And so I have nothing but like confidence from working out and being a bodybuilder that has helped me in so many other areas of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I always say the mental benefits, I mean, they definitely outweigh the physical benefits.
Oh,
I
they
mean,
do. And I think that's why many of us that do this sport or do any type of working out, doesn't matter your body, that's why you keep with it, because the way it makes you feel. I mean, there's no price. You can't get that from in any other thing in your life. Is just to get out there and go for a run, go to the gym. It's just those endorphins that you get, those chemicals that are in your brain that make you feel, and that's the high. That's the high that we're chasing every day.
yeah, it's a healthy addiction too. I mean, you can be addicted to a lot of different things, but I mean,
Oh,
working out is,
definitely.
definitely a positive thing. But also, I mean, we touched base on this a little bit before we started recording, and I mean, nutrition is by far the most important thing when it comes to this lifestyle, and so many people don't understand that. What would you say were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started to give bodybuilding a try?
Nutritional changes was just eliminating a lot of processed food, too many carbohydrates, just sugar in general, the eating out, fast food. I mean, it was just making your food at home, just more protein, more complex carbohydrates. I had to learn. I remember I went to a camp about nutrition, but that was, I mean, so many years ago. But each year I keep learning what works for me. Sometimes you can be too strict, and you just got to learn. And it's tough, but basically you have to get a mindset that your nutrition, it's a lifestyle. It's not just like, I'm going to do this. A lot of bodybuilders or people that get ready for an event, well, I'm going to start my diet now at 12 weeks out. I eat clean all year round, pretty much. I mean, I'll eat more carbs, I'll eat more fats during the off season, but i try I try to stay within like 10 to 12 pounds of cutting. I'm small, and I just try to eat clean all year round. And I think nutrition is so important for everyone, no matter if you're competing in bodybuilding, your longevity, just the obesity that we have. I mean, it's everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the one thing that really drives the competition and really, I mean, makes the difference and just even in your average everyday life. I mean, nutrition is so important. But one of the things that I think is just so fascinating about this sport also that's not really talked about as much is that, I mean, there have been so many things that I thought were probably the hardest thing for a bodybuilder, but by far the number one thing that I was most shocked by is that for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing. I mean, we hear it
Oh,
all the time. Yep, we get that reaction every time where it's like, it's harder than, your diet. It's harder than your working out. I mean, I always compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
you're absolutely right. You can have the best physique on stage and train your butt off, and you have it, but knowing how to present your physique on stage, where the judges see you, it's an art. It's an art. And I think of a lot of shows that I went to, that I in the past, and I know by looking at it now, I almost like laugh. I can't believe I did that. Was I didn't spend enough time posing. I didn't. I mean, I trained my butt off, but like, I mean, having posing is everything, because you can spend like a whole year training, but you didn't spend enough time on posing. So I have learned, especially since I went turned to the NPC the last couple of years, and actually got a coach for the first time, and really worked with me on posing, and how important it is. And it's just every day when I'm training, I'm in the garage or in the gym, I'll be in front of the mirror and I'll be twisting and turning, and just because it's everything. and I videotape. I think a lot of athletes, I started videotaping myself just this last year, videotaping myself and then looking at them and like, oh, I need to, just sometimes just a right turn, a right twist. It could be everything to your back pose, to your tricep pose. I mean, it's everything. And so I think I've didn't had a lot of placings in the past because I didn't present my package as well. So
I mean, I've always said you could be the most muscular person on the planet, and if you don't know how to pose, good luck. I mean,
no,
there have
it's
been,
true.
yeah,
It really is.
so many times that we've seen that. But out of your mandatory poses that you have to do, what is your favorite pose to do, and what is your least favorite pose to do?
Oh my God. Probably my favorite pose is probably my side tricep pose and front double bicep, my arms. Probably my least favorite one, but I'm getting better at it, and I nailed it last year at nationals. Is like my back pose. I always got back pose, and I don't know why, but like, but I'm getting where I like all of them now because you have to learn, you have to devote a lot of time to all of them, because like it's with anything you have to just like tweak things, and you got to get like second opinions, and it's everything, the posing. And people sometimes will look at you weird in the gym, like when you're posing, you'll be working out, and then I'll turn but they don't realize that you have to do that, because you're visualizing yourself all the time when you're training all year round. You're visualizing yourself of how you're going to be when you're on stage, when you finally complete that package. So
Well, and here's the part where she really embarrasses us. Can you give us a front double bicep? And everyone, look at she's over 50 years old. Are you kidding me? Look at that, everyone. That's just insane. That's just
yeah,
ridiculous.
I'm not pumped up. I'm not like,
Not pumped up. Are you kidding me? Jesus. That is just absolutely ridiculous. Look at that. That's just incredible. And I mean, look at that. Like, yeah, just pump that up. Can you do like the pop thing where people just like, yeah, that's just insane. That's just, I got to go to the gym now after we're done talking to her, everyone. We all got to go to the gym and start working out even
you're
hard,
funny. You're so funny.
even harder now. But one of the things too about posing that a lot of people don't understand is that you get more sore doing your poses a lot of times than you do from your actual workouts. How long did it take for you to sort of develop that, muscle memory and that strength to sort of go through a posing routine? Because so many people, I mean, they can't, when they first get started, that's the hardest thing for them, is just being that tense for that long, because the body is not meant to be tense for that long of a period of time.
Well, it's actually, to be honest with you, I've been doing the bodybuilding. I got into it late in my 40s, and I'm like 53, going to be 54 in September. And honestly, it's taken me like 8 years to finally get it. Like this last year, I finally got it. I think I finally matured enough as a bodybuilder to learn how to pose, and it's a workout.
No, yeah, we've heard so many stories on that, but one of the fun questions that I love to ask, because as you can tell, I'm one of the palest people that you'll ever meet in your entire life. My thick Norwegian skin being in the upper Midwest as well, where I mean, if I go out in the sunlight, I'm going to get either burnt to an absolute crisp, or I'm going to get farmer's tan, where let's be honest, that is not a real tan, but bodybuilders get to get tan, and I've always been jealous of that, because I've just for one day, just to be tan would be nice for me. But what's that feeling like for you when you get that tan on and you see, I mean, you basically become like a whole different person. I mean, you see all that hard work really tend to pay off. What's that feeling like when you get that final coat on and you look at yourself?
Well, when you go through all the months of training and then dieting and your body's there, and then when you finally get that tan on and you're at the show, I mean, it's like finally, it's like your masterpiece is almost there. It's I know, it's like you're transforming yourself. You're sculpting yourself, and nothing is complete. Nothing is complete until the hair is done, the makeup's done. Well, that's for women, but men too. And then when you get that tan on, and then they put the oil on you, and you got your suit on, then you're like, this is it. I mean, it's amazing, and almost like so much work. You'll train. What did they say? You train 2 years for 2 minutes on stage, and a lot of people they think it's insane, but but it teaches you a lot of discipline, because it's a lot of work that goes into just doing a show. The amount of time that you get on stage, but it's an amazing feeling. It's really good. And you get the pictures and you do all that. You have a photo shoot, and it's but it has to be something that you want to do, because we never know when we go on stage. The sport is so subjective, and it's just every year I just chase the fact that I got a little bit better being my age, look at what I did, at 52, 51, 52, now 53, it's just like, so it's my self accomplishments. I never get too upset with my placings.
No, and I always say too, it's like just get going on a prep and walking on that stage. You're a champion enough as it is, because just going what you have to go through to get on that stage is so. I mean, just the amount that they go through, everyone. I mean, it's just impressive enough. And I always say that's one of the more impressive things about bodybuilding is, yeah, like you said, you can work out for 2 years just for 2 minutes on that stage. Whereas other athletes, they're on there for such a long, I mean, they're on there for hours multiple times a week, or they, even like some of the bands that I have on, they're on stage for 2-3 hours, every weekend. And so it's adds so much more, I think, to this, that dedication. But I mean, also with that tan though, the one negative thing that I always hear though is that, I mean, you basically have to become like a statue. You can't really sit on anything. You can't really lean up against anything. I mean, that's another thing that, I mean, just adds on to the checklist of like what these people have to go through to go on stage. But when you walk on that stage, because I always say, I always ask this question to all my guests, whether they be my bands and my health and fitness. For my bands, I always ask, what is that feeling like when you get to walk up on stage and, perform live in front of hundreds of thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders that I have on. What is that feeling like when you get to walk up on that stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
You feel a sense of accomplishment. You feel like I did it. I already won. It doesn't matter how I place. Of course, you want to. We all want to like place high or win or get our pro card. But like when you walk on that stage, because there's so much built up, man. The training, the traveling, just the prep. I mean, it's so tough, and it's a lot of work. But like when I remember last year being on that stage, walking on there, I felt so good. I mean, it was like finally, and you get a few minutes to do your 45-minute presentation. You do mandatory poses, and it's you got to take it all in. And to me, one of my favorite parts of the show, and I think that's why I do physique and bodybuilding, is your posing routine in the finals. That's probably the highlight for me. And you put on a show for the crowd. I mean, you just do it. But it's a sense of accomplishment.
When you're on stage, does time seem to slow down, or does it seem to speed up, or is it sort of a mixture?
It's kind of a mixture. It's kind of a mixture. I remember like, you'll do your opposing routine, and, and you'll forget it, but it doesn't matter, because what I've learned over the last couple of years is you kind of go, you make it up as you go. You have a set routine, but things change. You just got to learn to slow down and, show your poses, and I have a habit of going very fast with my posing and dancing. So I've had to really, really slow down and just concentrate. So, but yeah, it's kind of a mixture of both, Sometimes you want to go too fast. And what you really need to do is to slow down and show your hard work, show those mandatory poses, show your work to the judges. You move too fast, they're not going to see everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's, again, for some people it lasts forever, and for some people it goes by just like that. But for a lot of people, yeah, it's like your answer, where it's sort of a mix in between that. But another fun question that I love to ask: what is your go-to post-show meal after a show?
Oh goodness, my go-to. Oh, it's probably just it's probably just a juicy big hamburger, something really bad, and and some French fries, and probably like a either a milkshake or some chocolate chip cookies. Just some straight up sugar and carbs, or either pizza, nothing too healthy.
I hate asking that question because my mouth is drooling basically every single time
I
I ask it
know.
then. And oh my God, it gets me thinking about food. But yeah, so moving on before, I start basically eating this microphone because it may look like something resembling food. One of the other things that I find is, so interesting, and it's also another stereotype. Well, not necessarily a stereotype, but a lot of people just don't understand is that look that you present on stage is not a sustainable look. You're not going to be able to look like that 24/7. And I think a lot of people, they see shows like Biggest Loser where, people go on and they lose, like they lose a tremendous amount of weight, and some of them are able to keep it off. So I think a lot of people just assume that the same thing kind of applies to bodybuilding, where it's like, oh, you've worked out just as hard, if not harder than those people. And so you should be able to maintain that look that you present on stage, but they don't realize, the manipulations that you've done with water or with other things, and just how that look that you present on stage, you're not going to be able to maintain it. What was that like for you when you, first figured that out? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career has gone on, that, hey, when I walk on stage, that's the best I'm going to look for a while?
Yeah, it can really play tricks on you. I think a lot of people and I did in the beginning. You have a hard time. You train and train. You get that high. You're prepping, and you go to the show, and then it's all over with, and then you're like, then what? And then you get off that prep diet. You start eating more fats and more carbs, and you see your body changing. And a lot of times people can get depressed, men and women, and you kind of feel kind of lost. It's just like you're like, well, what's next? But you know, I have learned that it's health. You got to have a healthy outlook on this sport if you want to be in it a long time, and your body needs to go back to normal. You need to take some time and rest after many months of training and depleting yourself. Nutrition wise, and you just got to get that mindset. And sometimes it takes a while. It takes a while to know, what, you got to go back, you got to put some more body fat back on, and do it slowly. And I remember after shows, sometimes I would just eat like too much for like, you just like binge and you're like, this is not good. And so you just got to learn, you got to have a healthy outlook and know, slowly I need to get back to put more body fat back on, but you kind of do a slow process. But it can kind of play tricks with you a little bit. But I have learned the last few years that, I'm good, I'm disciplined, but it's taken me a while.
Yeah, we've heard so many stories on here of, people, they put on, like 30, 40 pounds within, like 2 weeks after their show, and they learn that the hard way. But yeah, I always like to compare it to starting your own business, where it's like, you got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, those two
Exactly.
just go hand in hand, and so many people don't understand that. And also, I mean, like you said, if you were to maintain that weight for a extended period of time, I mean, there's so many health effects that could happen. And, people don't realize that you are not at your healthiest when you step on that stage. As a matter of fact, a lot of times you're at your weakest. I always said if they had like a push up or a pull up contest on that stage, people would be shocked at the lack of strength that a lot of people might have had, where they'd be like, oh my God, some people in the stands could probably do more than you. But it's just because you're so depleted and you're so dried out, and you just, I mean, a lot of times you haven't eaten in a while before that. So, I mean, it's just a mindset just to even step on that stage.
Yeah, you're very drained physically after competing in a show, and especially if you've done one show and then a lot of people will do another show 2 or 3 weeks later. I've done that before, where I've done like two shows back to back or three, and it takes a lot out of you, and you're drained physically and mentally. So I always suggest a good break, But sometimes we get right back into the gym because we're crazy, we're obsessed, and it's good I have learned to try to take time off. I'm not known to wanting to take a lot of time off, but it's good. You really need to take time off.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone needs a break every once in a while. And I mean, going back to the working out aspect, one of the train techniques that, I was a little familiar with before I started this podcast, and I did it a few times, like in high school and a little bit in college, and a lot of people have been praising on this podcast is time under tension. Do you like to use a lot of time under tension in your training?
I actually just started doing that recently with bands, and it's yeah, I do. I think it works. I think the slow negatives of that really works. A lot of detail in your muscles. I think since the quarantine, we've many of us, and you'll probably notice on Instagram and social media, a lot of people are just scrambling with ideas of like what to do. And what I've seen and actually got ideas was all these band exercises that you can use for tension. I've actually learned so much and have actually incorporated some of that just recently in my garage, because you don't have all the equipment that you do. And I was amazed how much that you can do with bands for pull-ups, bands for your legs. I mean, you can do a whole workout on bands under tension.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you want to get your veins popping, there's no better workout to do than using, bands too. I mean, that's definitely a go-to. And yeah, I say that all the time. But before we get into the pandemic questions, I mean, the two questions that I always love to ask all the bodybuilders that I have on, the first one for me, I mean, there were so many positive things that really impacted me when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But the one negative thing is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water, anything that's sealed on tight. You're the go-to strength person. Being at home now during this pandemic, I mean, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries whenever my parents get them, being the good son that I am. Have you found that to be sort of a similar problem? I mean, looking the way that you look, that even at your age, though, people still expect you to maybe do favors for them, or they ask you for help in a lot of things?
Oh, you're funny. Maybe a little bit, not too much. I mean, I get asked silly questions like, I'm in education. I'm an educator, and sometimes, people will go, "Oh, well, Shannon, you're going to lead this. You're going to do this." Sometimes, a lot of times, people will just assume the way I look on the outside, and they know I'm in bodybuilding, that well, can you do this since you're in shape? Can you do this? Can you do that? But I take it as a compliment. I mean, I don't get asked all the time, but like,
I mean, it's a double-edged sword for me being 6'3", because I could have zero muscle at all. And I mean, they're always just like, hey, tall guy, come and help us. So it's one thing that I've had to adjust to. But I mean, let's be honest, you're not the average looking 50-year-old woman. And I always say, if you're in like really good shape, if you're a bodybuilder, walking out in public, like if you're dressed the way you're dressed right now and you were to walk to even a grocery store, I mean, you become the center of attention. I mean, I bet you get all the questions all the time. Like you were talking about, like, how do you get arms like that? Or what do you do to work out? How have you adjusted to that? Because for so many people, it's like sort of being like becoming like a mini celebrity. And some people, you know, it's interesting how people have learned to cope with that. How have you gone along with that as your career has gone on, and you know, as you've gotten more used to it?
Yeah, I used to get where like people would just ask me in the gym, the big thing was, men and women would come up to me, and the one thing, and I used to, and I think take it as a compliment. They would look at me and they would go, "Can I ask how old you are?" And I would like, I'm like, "Okay, I'm like 52, I'm 53," and then it was, "Well, how long did it take to get like that?" And I just kind of like laugh. I take it as a compliment, and so people are just always curious, and I used to get a lot just in the gym, but I think a lot of times when I've noticed when sometimes I don't get out of the store fast enough, and I'm a talker, is because people will stop me. I'm paying for something at a convenience store, or I'm someplace, and they'll go, "Oh, you work out, huh?" And then they'll ask me questions, so I get sidetracked. And I'm always trying to help people. I might give them my card, because I do personal training on the side. But sometimes it might take you longer to get out of some place because people are just curious. They want to know. They want to know. People are always looking. Like if somebody has great hair, they want to know, "Oh, who does your hair?" I mean, people are just curious, and they just want to know because everybody wants the answers. And I always give positive feedback and give them my card, or refer them to somebody, because I take it as a compliment. And sometimes I just laugh, and sometimes you meet friends and they become like your buddies, and you hang out together. But it's interesting.
Oh, I mean, the stories that we've heard, yeah, by far, it's interesting to have that perspective in life when you're always getting asked these questions. But my favorite question to ask, because I mean, for clothing options, fit guys have enough problems as it is, but fit women, I mean, your clothing options can be severely limited. I mean, we've heard so many stories on this podcast, and I mean, I always say, if you have big, broad shoulders, good luck fitting in a dress. And jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, where it's almost impossible to find a pair of jeans. What has that experience been like for you, and how has it gotten easier for you to sort of figuring out, clothing options that work for you? Because I always say you have to have two wardrobes, basically, too, your prep wardrobe and your off-season wardrobe.
Yeah. Well, luckily for me, I live in like spandex. I'm like a physical education teacher, so I go to work like in fitness clothes, like spandex jackets, zip up, hoodies. So that's not like too bad. And then I have like my small shorts, and then my bigger shorts. But I think the biggest thing for me is, and my daughter will abide to this, is like dresses. Dresses. My daughter got married, and I remember last summer she ordered a bunch of dresses for me to try on, and I mean she ordered it because she wants to get the perfect dress for me. And she's like, "You're not wearing short sleeves. You're not going to wear. It's going to be long because I don't want the attention on your arms." And
I was going to
it
say,
was
she doesn't want
really
you to upstage her at her own wedding.
she had a December wedding too. So I remember trying on all her dresses. It must have been like 10 or 12 dresses like last summer. And it's like, no, no. And some of them were short sleeves. Like, no. And remember she told me, she goes, "Is your back going to stop getting bigger or what?" And I was prepping at the time. This was like last summer. I was getting ready for the nationals in July. And this was like June. So I was pretty lean. I was pretty cut up. And I go, "Look, I'm going to be all calmed down by December. Okay." But so some things can be a little challenging. Sometimes you're like, "Can you wear sleeves? Like, don't wear that because that's showing too much." So it's just, most of the time I take pride, and I dress, I'm professional. I dress professional at work. But sometimes things can be a little, you're like, well, they might stare if I wear this. You have to figure out where you're at, that if it's a professional atmosphere, maybe you shouldn't wear a tank top, Shannon. Maybe you should wear a polo top, or, there's been times where I've put on a jacket. I'm going into the store after my workout when my arms were shredded, just because like people would look at me. And usually that's just when you're pretty cut up, bodybuilders. And sometimes people will look at you and give you weird looks. And sometimes they might want to stop and chit chat with you. But I found myself like doing that more this last year. And then sometimes I don't care. I'll just like, you know what? I earned this. I'm going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If I
It's the
had,
time and the place,
yeah,
it just
well,
depends where it's
absolutely.
at.
Yeah, and I always said if I looked like that, yeah, I would be sleeveless all the time, even during the middle of the
Right?
winter, just walking around. Yeah, I would show it off like nothing else. But yeah, it's just fascinating. But I mean, obviously no one predicted this pandemic, and it's just affected so many people, and especially in the health and fitness. I mean, on Instagram we see so many of these like at home workouts that people are posting, but what is, I mean, I know that you have a gym in your garage, which is, a good thing, so you can still, get your workouts in, but one thing people don't talk about is the mental aspect. How have you adjusted to this pandemic? Has it been a little bit easier for you? And I mean, especially being in education, I mean, that's one thing where it's just a show basically. I mean, I have so many friends that are teachers too that are talking about the current state of things. How has this pandemic affected you, and how have you been dealing with it?
Actually, it's I've gone both ways. There's days where like I'm down and then I get up, and it's I'm in a good situation because I am a teacher, so I'm doing virtual learning, from home, and it's hard because I don't have that contact with my students. And no matter what we do, any type of job that we do, I mean, most of the country is at home working right now. We're slowly getting back into the workforce. Things are starting to open up, but it does affect you and your um, overall well-being of how you feel day in and day out is that interaction, is that social interaction that you get in your job, you know and so it's been a little tough, calling my students parents, and I work in special education, so I work with students with disabilities, students that that are in wheelchairs, students that are visually impaired, autistic, the autism population. I work with so many kids that really, you know, can get more depressed. So it's been hard. It's been hard, but we're just all dealing with it day in and day out, dealing with like staying busy, keeping that positive mindset. And I think what's helped me through this is my discipline, as being an athlete, is you gotta buckle down. We're gonna all get through this. Everybody's in the same boat. So I think then again, being disciplined in your lifestyle, this has maybe easier for some bodybuilders is because we're used to just staying with it and knowing that there's going to be a good outcome at the end. The training has been different in the garage. You don't have that feedback it's not about the training exercises and the equipment you're limited to. I think it's about that atmosphere, that environment you feed off of that makes you happy. So when you're in the garage by yourself, and it's hot and you have dogs like looking at you, barking at you and running around, and a cat laying in there, and you're like, wow. But anyways, it's been a roller coaster, but I think it's making me stronger. Actually, it's making me think outside of my box and be flexible, because that's what you have to do. You can either go this way or you can go this way. So
Well, and I always say if there's any positive to be taken out of all of this, it's that it makes you appreciate things a lot more that you had no appreciation really for before this hit. So when everything does, eventually open back up, and however long it's going to take, I think people will start to appreciate things a little bit more, and they'll start to appreciate the face-to-face social interactions
oh,
a
absolutely.
little, hopefully a little more than a little bit more. But being that you are in special education, how much of that do you use as motivation, knowing, because I've had people that are trauma nurses that work maybe in the hospice too, or I've also had a few special education teachers, and I always like to ask, how do you use that as motivation, knowing that, I mean, you're a healthy, strong individual, and you deal with a lot of people that might not have gotten dealt the best hand in life, and how much of seeing that do you use as motivation when you're in the gym, saying that like, hey, I can complain all I want, but I'm still so blessed when it comes to other people that I deal with.
You're absolutely right. I was a general PE teacher for many years, and I went into special education I'm an adaptive physical education specialist. So working with these kids, showing up, I have a student that's in a chair. They're part of their body's paralyzed. I have students that can't see. It has motivated me so much to be grateful for everything that I have, because you know, I don't have a bad day, because some of these kids will never walk. They'll never be able to run. Some of them are going to be dependent upon their parents for years. They'll never be able to live on their own. Some of them may not even live a full life. They have all kinds of physical disabilities, cancer, and it has motivated me to make me be real appreciative of the lifestyle I have, the health that I have, and what I'm able to do every day. I mean, I can go to the gym every day and work out. I mean, these kids have to be pushed around in a wheelchair. So they have motivated me and inspired me. And I try to take some of these kids to the Special Olympics and do wonderful things for them. And, I think it goes both ways. We feed off one another. I motivate them and they motivate me. So it's been a blessing in this career for me. I mean, it has made me realize how blessed I am, because anything can happen any day. There's no guarantees with us.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It really makes you appreciate things more. And if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to just be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you would like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
Well, I'm hoping a year from now, I would hopefully I've been able to go to a national show and maybe got my pro card. If I don't have my pro card, that's fine. I do this sport because I love this sport and it motivates me. And I'm blessed to be almost 54 years old and still be healthy enough to still keep doing this and improving. Um, I hope that in a year from now, my daughter's getting ready to have a child. I'm going to be a grandma. And she's moving out here, her and her husband from back east. They're moving to California. So I'm hoping that I will have a little grandchild that I'll be able to take care of. And I'm hoping to move into a new home, to buy a new home here shortly. So, and hopefully I'll still be continuing, maybe getting ready for the Master Nationals in Pittsburgh at this time. They have postponed the show that I was going to do in July. I'm not sure if it's going to take place in October. I'm not sure about a lot of things in 2020 with all of us with the pandemic, but so I have a lot of goals, and I think that's one thing that I've always been a goal setter.
No, and that's great, and we wish you nothing but the best. And I mean, lastly, I did this poll right before New Year's, asking, what's one body part that everyone wants to improve on the most this new year, and the choices were arms, abs, back, and legs. And arms won by like 20%. And as we can see before, I mean, you definitely know how to train arms. So, what do you do for your arm workout? What does a typical arm workout look
Uh,
like for you?
I do I do a lot of drop sets. I do a lot of pull ups. I sometimes I'm a little different. I don't train like a typical bodybuilder on some days. I think it's just my background as being an athlete. I might just have a day where I just do CrossFit type stuff. I might do all I might do is push ups, pull ups, dips, calisthenics. Maybe do just I might just go to the park and just do all calisthenics. And I do push ups and pull ups and dips usually every single day I train. I know that sounds insane. I might train my legs, but at the end of my workout, I do 20 pull ups. So, but I make it creative. I like to do a lot of different things. I mean, I don't think there's any one thing that I can do, but I think one thing that's really helped my conditioning and my upper body development is just all the pull ups, all the push ups that I have done over the years.
What's your record for consecutive pull-ups?
Well, I actually went to the LA Fitness Expo this year and did competitions. I did, I think 35. Yeah, 35. Yeah. So I love pull-ups, but I mean, 8 years ago I couldn't do one. So I don't know. I just love to challenge myself. I just love to mix it up. I think with your training as you get older, and anybody, you have to train things up and you have to like make it fun, because if you're burned out, you're not going to have fun in your workout.
Yeah.
And bodybuilding can be hard, training day in day out for like one show. So you gotta mix things up. You gotta do different things.
Yeah.
It's the variety is just mixing it up.
Geez, 35 though. I mean, that's better than me, everyone out there. I mean, I'm at like 22, I think was the most I got in a row. So
Oh,
that's,
that's really good. Yeah.
hey, but hey, I definitely got to work on it now. But before we wrap things up, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I actually like to give a shout out to my coach out of Fresno, Clovis. He's going through a hard time right now. He has a supplement shop. He's helped me so much the last couple of years. Jim Ray's out of Flex Factory and all my Flex Factory friends. I also like to give a big shout out to my son Tommy, that has been motivating me through the pandemic to train, and my good friend, my special friend in Wisconsin, that's near you. That has been a
Ooh,
big,
Wisconsin.
yes, has been a big fan of mine, a very special person, Jeff Bauer. So yeah, I have, and all my friends in shape, and all my friends out of Iron Therapy. I have lot of good friends. I train out of like 3 different gyms. I like to hop around, but
That's
but anyways,
That's awesome. I'll give all of them a shout out down below, and I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below, everyone. And just go and give her a follow. I mean, I'll warn you though. I mean, it'll motivate you to get in shape and to stop getting off. I mean, stop eating all those Twinkies and get off those couches. And I mean, I couldn't think of a better way to end this than you embarrassing us again. Can you give us another front double buy, and then we'll just the better way to end it. Oh my God, everyone. Jesus. I mean,
There we go.
I was actually planning on training arms today, so now I'm definitely going to have to go a little bit harder. But again,
You're
Shannon,
funny.
thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It was my pleasure.